All right, this will be the video summary for chapters 2 and 3 in consumer behavior. The reason why it's two chapters is because chapter 2 deals with culture and it spills over into chapter 3, so I'm going to combine these two videos together. I'm simply looking at the outlines that I've provided to you for chapters 2 and 3 and all the chapters. If I provide a video, it will be based on the on the outlines provided to you. We'll start off with the definition of culture there on page 40. Take a look at that, and then the two paragraphs that follow this definition is Roman numeral 2. I summarized it in Roman numeral 2 there in the outline for chapter 2. Culture is, and then a colon, meaning culture is comprehensive, culture is acquired, culture is bounded, and culture is something seldom aware of. And so there's a little bit of a discussion there for you on that. The main part of chapter 2 will be Roman numeral 6, and it's the cultural values. Basically, when we look at another culture, we'll look at the values that that culture holds, and it's a way that we can compare cultures around the world, within a country, etc. And we can look at the values that they hold. And there are three main categories of cultural values. There's other-oriented values, environment-oriented values, and self-oriented values. Those are explained in examples of each on page 43 in table 2.1. With this table, it summarizes this. And the reason why I'm paying attention to this is not only because we use it to compare the cultures, but also we use this, you'll see this used again in chapter 3. Let's see, cultural values, listed some of theirs, how they may differ. We look at some of the nonverbals, time, space, symbols, and how you can take a look at some examples in the chapter on how some cultures may differ based on these nonverbals. And then chapter 2 finishes out with some of the strategies that we might use in marketing. And notice that there are two main categories of strategies when it comes to cross-cultural marketing. That would be a standardized strategy, which means the marketing strategy would be the same no matter what culture you go into. Meaning, if Coca-Cola has a athlete, a soccer player in a commercial here in the States, and they have a standardized strategy, then it's going to be a soccer player in a commercial, same dialogue, everything's the same throughout the world, every market that they're in. That would be a standardized strategy. Very simple, very clean, easy to do, same, typically inexpensive. It's the same in every country. So downside is that you could offend your market in another culture because what works in one culture may not work in another. The second strategy that you might choose to go with, there are lots of names for it. That's why I was looking down. Individualized, customized, globalization, an adaptation strategy. There's lots of terms there. Globalization is a kind of a new term over the last decade or so, where we say you go global with local strategies, or you go global thinking locally. But basically, the second type of the second strategy is where you customize your strategy for each and every culture you're in. Now, the good upside to this, or the positives, would be that you have a unique strategy that appeals to that market, and you know you're not going to offend anyone. The downside is this is very expensive, time-consuming, etc. With those. Moving into Chapter 3, it's this idea of culture and how it influences our buying behavior, but in the U.S. alone. Let's look at the U.S., looking at the cultural values in the U.S., and then some of the demographics as well on how they differ or are changing over most recently over time. If you'll look on page 80, figure 3.1, this is a summary of how the cultural values here in the United States are changing. Look at where we traditionally have been, where we're currently, and where we're emerging to. Most of those by the author I agree with. There's a few I do not, but it gives you a good idea of where we are culturally. Then the demographic changes and some things that we see happening at the second part of chapter 3 would be things like green marketing, more focused on the environment, cause marketing, people getting involved in causes. The gay and lesbian market has gained in popularity. Quite a bit of marketing strategies targeting the gay and lesbian market, but yet they don't make up as much as the population to warrant that. So we see an overcompensation to be politically correct and those sorts of things. And then the gender-based market, meaning the male-female. We are, have seen products that have been traditionally male and they're trying to make them or try to reach the female market, and the mistakes that are made there, and how companies have done a much better job at changing products to meet the different genders or not going with gender stereotypes in their advertisements. There's a discussion of those kinds of things, but mainly focusing on maybe the female of the household, the female head of household, there in that discussion of the gender-based. And I do want to point out on page 96, it talks about ascribed roles and achieved roles. Ascribed roles are those that you're born with, you have no control over, like gender. Is special government treatment or special leeway and things like that with ascribed roles. But when you start dealing with achieved roles that are come about because of something we've done, that's where we have a little bit more difficulty in distinguishing what should be considered a depressed group or whatever because of an achieved role, because it is something that they did, it is something that they achieved. So take a look at that discussion there. But that's chapters 2 and 3.